Do you know Mansory?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Not yet, Norman. Maybe in a couple of years you'll be a client. Mansory is luxury cars. And not just any luxury cars. So they take Lamborghinis, for example, and then highly customize them. They came in to partner with us for the hackathon and also provided prices.
I need to ask about this now. Okay, why did they partner with you guys?
That's so obvious, Norman. My hackathon builders are their customers of tomorrow. Europe has amazing talent. Europe is a big engine of talent growth, right? We have amazing universities. We have great talent. However, what I see more and more is that this great talent decides not to remain in Europe. Some of our best people decide to either incorporate their companies or they decide to move elsewhere altogether. And that is something that I would say we most urgently need to act on that.
GM, and welcome to the OGC podcast, where we go deep with the people actually building and marketing the future of crypto. Today we have Patricia Albrecht or Patricia Albrecht. We're both Germans, so I can't pronounce it properly. And Patricia builds Superteam Germany. Superteam is Solana's local community and builder support network. And today we don't want to only talk about Solana, but we actually want to dig into what it really takes to build a crypto ecosystem from scratch. And with that, welcome, Patricia. I'm very excited to have you on.
GM Norman, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to speak to you.
Yes, and we know each other really well. We're locals in Berlin, so it's really cool to have somebody local on the show here today. And yeah, we can jump right into the episode. Before this, I shared the awkward thing I did in the first few episodes that I did, which was this or that, and I tried to customize that with every person, and it turned out to be the most challenging thing in my preparation. So I dropped it after like 3 episodes, but you said you would like to have a this or that, and I didn't prepare any.
I would love to.
Yeah. So let me freestyle some, but it's, let me just try to come up with a few pairs. So, retail or institutional?
So look, my work is really...
You can only say this. You can only say...
Really?
You can only... Yeah, you have to say only that. No further explanation. You only have to say the response. So institutional or retail?
With the hardest of them all. For Solana, institutional.
Berlin or Munich?
100% Berlin.
Oh God, I'm not creative this morning.
Should I ask you some?
Yeah, ask me a couple.
Okay. Coinbase versus Bitpanda.
Coinbase.
Solana versus Ethereum.
Solana these days.
Wonderful. Berkine versus KitKat.
Berkine.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. I actually have my OGC coffee mug here.
Oh,
so.
Nice.
That was
Lovely.
fun. So maybe I should reintroduce that segment. It's actually fun, but we also know each other well, so it's easier for us. But we didn't introduce you properly yet. So why don't you share a couple of words on yourself, about your background and what you do?
Very happy to. Thanks, Norman. So my name is Patricia. I lead the German Superteam. I am based in Berlin. And as you already said, Superteam is the local talent and community layer of Solana. And Solana is quite special in this sense because Solana, as the first blockchain, introduced country-run community levels, which are the Superteams. We are now active in over 20 countries, so from Nigeria to Canada to Japan, and are really one of the strongest go-to-market engines and innovation engines for Solana. About myself, I've first invested in crypto in 2017 when I was working in Switzerland and was thinking of good ways to put my Swiss salary to use. Then got quite lucky, wrote a bull run and could use the crypto gains to pay for tuition of my MBA degree at Oxford at the time. Then worked at a couple other big organizations in Web2 and finally joined Web3 full-time in 2023 on a Polkadot parachain called Frequency.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. And then ever since, I was very, very intrigued and fascinated by the space. joined Solana in 2024 and have been leading the super team ever since.
Really cool. Yeah, and I really like how you guys approach things. I'm a part of many events and connect with the communities a lot. So I'm really excited that we can dive into all of this a little bit. Really cool to have you on. Yeah, so I would like to kick off by you maybe explaining how you see ecosystem building. What does your day to day look like? What do you focus on? Where are your challenges? What is ecosystem building to you?
Mm-hmm. So ecosystem building is the core of what I do, right? And ecosystem building to me means creating an environment that is as conducive as possible for our members or our builders to win. Yeah. So it's not that it's not that unilateral. So ecosystem building has many, many layers, many building blocks, ranging or starting from capital to infrastructure to distribution, institutions. And all of these building blocks need to work in tandem for an environment to exist on which really the community or the Solana ecosystem can flourish. And my job is to work on all of those to make sure that people connect with each other and Solana members have the best possible environment to win and to succeed.
Do you mind making it a little, like, let's say, even operational? What are the highlights? What are the things that you really focus on, let's say, in the first half of 2026? What
Mhm.
do you and your team look into for the first
Mhm.
half?
Absolutely. So a lot of what we do is really focused on finding new talent, funneling new talent into the ecosystem, and then enabling them to go big. And one way of doing this is the hackathons that we run, right? So we do global big hackathons twice a year. And when I say hackathon or, a Solana hackathon is very different from hackathons that people might know from other chains or other ecosystems. Maybe elsewhere, a hackathon means that, you go somewhere for a weekend and then the price is a hoodie or so. And that is fundamentally different at Solana. So our hackathons are startup competitions. They take 5 or 6 weeks. They are global. And for example, the last one that was in October, November of the last year, we had $2.5 million in prize money globally. Yeah. And we do a lot of care and take a lot of attention to making sure this experience is something that is as valuable as possible for builders. It goes to that extent that we call the hackathon phase wartime. And the time that we don't spend working on hackathons is peacetime, right?
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, absolutely. So right now we are still in peacetime. I'm focusing on a lot of things, but then hackathon season, wartime, will start next month, where we have prepared something that's called an Accelerate Germany tour, where we go across German cities to, I think we currently have 6 stops planned in to really inform everyone about the hackathon, to draw in talent, to make sure people know about everything that's possible on Solana, and then have them sign up for the hackathon or have them join the hackathon in April and May. Besides this, of course, the ecosystem building is a lot more than just hackathon, right? We run a lot of events in Berlin, but also outside in several German cities. We are really doubling down on our institutional work this year. So we've just launched a new series in Frankfurt, which is called the Solana Salon, which is focusing on really bringing TradFi, bringing capital allocators together and letting them know that Solana is the platform or the network to utilize when they are thinking of doing anything related to blockchain. And then we are also planning, since you were asking about the first half of the year, we are planning a really big summit that will take place in Berlin in June. We have not yet openly announced this yet. So this is something that will go live probably anytime when people are watching this podcast or are listening to this podcast. And yeah, that is something that I'm super excited about and that we are all really focused on right now.
Very interesting. And who are you trying to attract? Can you explain the audience that you're trying to connect with? You mentioned institutions in Frankfurt, for example, but throughout the year and the actual builders, and like what audiences do you tap into? Who is the ideal people that you're trying to source for the ecosystem?
Mhm. So the ecosystem is incredibly diverse, right? So I'd say there's not one audience that we are mainly looking to connect to. So, for example, for a hackathon, we are looking for founders, we're looking for builders, for developers that are interested in building something on Solana. But at the same time, we are very open towards really anyone who is interested in being active in Solana. We've spoken about the institutions in Frankfurt. So yes, we work with TradFi, we work with bankers in that respect. But at the same time, we have something called a Creators Guild, right? Which is a meetup specifically focused for creators, for artists, for anyone in that area who's also working on Solana. So I'd say there's not one audience that we are going after. Yes, the majority of people that we commonly interact with are builders, developers, investors, increasingly also institutions. But we're a really friendly bunch and we're incredibly open. So anyone who is interested in Solana, who is interested in innovation and blockchain technology is very welcome to come to one of our many events or to get involved in any way they'd like to.
And when did you have a successful 2026? How do you measure success?
Mm.
What are you focused on? Like when we meet back and when we meet in December, when was that a successful year for you and Solana Superteam Germany?
Mhm. That's an excellent question. So at Superteam, we actually quite rigorously track our KPIs, right? So I'd say there are the hard metrics we're going after, and then there are the softer metrics, which is, community sentiment, which is how happy are our members, how likely are they to recommend Superteam to their friends, to bring their friends in. When we're looking at the hard metrics, I'd say startup success is 100% something that I am working very, very deliberately towards.
Can you explain startup success? How do you find that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've spoken about the hackathons, right, as a growth engine also for the network. So the objective of the hackathon is not to find a developer that writes the cleanest code, right? The objective is to discover startups that then later on go on and turn into businesses on Solana. So that means we run these hackathons. There are startups formed afterwards. There is this massive global prize pool, which is partly a grant, so non-dilutive capital, but also partially equity investments by Solana's venture arm, right? So they're comparable to Y Combinator. And then when we have these startups, and hopefully we'll have a ton of amazing German startups coming out of each hackathon, we have very targeted initiatives to help them raise capital and find investors, to help them with finding product market fit, to help them with their go-to-market strategy, and to help them with marketing and distribution. And because of all of these initiatives, one key factor that I have is startup success, meaning do startups succeed in raising capital? Do startups succeed in launching their products? Do startups succeed in actually getting revenue, which is more important than ever in our current times? So finding the next generation of German or European Solana-born startups would be a huge measure of success for us here at Superteam Germany.
Yeah. And I think my next question, and you partially answered it already, was you have a pretty strong track record before crypto, which not often is the case. I feel like there's a lot of crypto natives that really kind of are born and raised in the industry, which also has its charm. But I feel like you have seen a lot before. So I'm wondering, how do you think this past Web2 experience shapes your approach, your personal, but I think it's also within the Solana super team. I feel like you guys understand the Web2 playbook. So yeah, just curious, how do you see that, how that shapes you maybe versus somebody who has worked in crypto their whole life?
Interesting. It's interesting you say this because I have almost the opposite impression, right? I feel like crypto companies are really doubling down on getting the best talent if it's Web2 or Web3, right? So Coinbase, maybe as an example, their MD of Germany has a rock solid McKinsey career, I think a decade or more spanning of Web2. And Coinbase is now his very first Web3 native venture. Similarly, big projects within Solana, Jupiter has just hired amazing talent from KKR, so from TradFi, from private equity. We see lots of talent from traditional finance flowing into crypto. Crypto, Solana reached mainnet in 2020. It started taking off in 2021. So it is not that old, right? And if you are looking at really experienced, mature talent that can also help a blockchain guide it to the next level, professionalize it, introduce some structure, some processes. I feel like my experience from the organizations I previously worked at is a huge asset, a huge strength. Not to say that, crypto native talent is liking those strengths, but I feel like crypto is really maturing. It's growing up. The Wild West times of the last cycle are to a large extent a thing of the past. Yeah, don't know if you remember.
But you did see that gap in the past, because I'm surprised that
Hmm?
I'm surprised that you say it's kind of the standard. I don't necessarily see that, and maybe specifically in the last 12 months, this is dramatically shifting now. But I would say there's a lot of ecosystems out there still that do not really tap into this type of talent and to this type of experience. So I feel like Solana is outstanding, and that's also part of the big success.
Maybe. Of course, I only know what I know, and I fully agree. It is changing. It has been changing the most in the maybe last year, but this is definitely a trend that I'm seeing that is just getting stronger and stronger. Also, with the focus of this cycle, if you want to call it that way, on really collaborating and working with TradFi or working with financial services infrastructure in order to work on making crypto more of an infrastructure layer and more of the financial infrastructure for the finance industry of tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing, you're a local lead, right? So you're really mostly looking into the German ecosystem, the German market. I do know you obviously work cross country a lot as well, but I was curious to get your take. We kind of had it in our pre-discussion about Europe and the state of Europe when it comes to crypto. I would say Europe is not the epicenter of the world. Things are really happening more in the US and more in Asia. People are not necessarily super bullish on Europe when it comes to crypto and even other topics. So, yeah, I was curious. What's your take on how is Europe doing compared to these other big big ecosystems, US and Asia and
Yeah,
Middle East? There's another obviously another ecosystem growing there. So, yeah, curious to get your take on Europe.
yeah, I'll be honest, Norman, this is something that worries me. Europe has amazing talent. Europe is a big engine of talent growth, right? We have amazing universities. We have great talent. We have great talent. However, what I see more and more is that this great talent decides not to remain in Europe. Some of our best people decide to either incorporate their companies elsewhere, they decide to move elsewhere altogether. And that is something that I would say we most urgently need to act on this. Right. So maybe just last week, OpenClaw, the Austrian founder, was in the news, who, single-handedly grew his startup to, what is it, probably a unicorn right now, and said he exited and is now moving to join OpenAI in the US. And unless Europe really takes important steps towards changes in regulation and changes in access to capital, the future will not be as bright as it should be. Uh, so the two biggest factors that I see that really hold founders back or that hold innovation back in Europe is regulation, where sometimes it feels like here, regulation is a brake, right? Regulation is holding people back, is holding companies back, is holding innovation back. And in other countries, regulation is there to enable you. Regulation empowers you and helps you actually start that business, start that company. So that is really something where I'm hoping that European policymakers will work on making this a more conducive environment to founders and to companies. And then the other factor is access to capital, right? So other geographies, particularly the US, but also increasingly the MENA region. We see a lot of blockchain talent in Dubai and Singapore. Access to capital is a lot easier there. There are more investors. The attitude in general is more risk embracing than here. And if founders cannot tap into sufficient capital in Europe, you cannot blame them for going elsewhere. So these two factors are things that we definitely need to work on, to consider more when going forward, when we want to establish Europe as center and as hub for innovation, also in the next decades to come.
And are you more hopeful, or are you more a doomer when it comes to that? So do you see a tendency that things are moving into the right direction? I mean, do you even connect with policymakers, policy institutions a lot? Because I mean, you cannot take on everything, right? So yeah, where does the trend go in your observation? Are you hopeful? Are you skeptical? Like how do you feel?
Look, I'm, of course, I am hopeful. Otherwise, I would not have this job. Europe is still a really big engine for innovation, for growth, right? As I already said. I don't work too closely with policymakers, so we are more on the operational, on the hands-on side. I was at a blockchain briefing at Bundestag a couple of weeks ago, where these topics were discussed. As Superteam, we are a member of certain associations like the Bundesblock. So, these policy initiatives are something that we are very supportive of. We're not at the forefront of, lobbying or blockchain regulation, but we're extremely supportive of everyone who is. Yeah. And then hopefully that will help us to not only have the best talent, but have talent that stays in Europe and that founds companies in Europe and maybe takes them to unicorn status one day.
Yeah, amazing. And when you say talent, how do you see differences in the talent, in the builders, in the founders that you guys see? I mean, I'm sure you have exposure through the global events that you guys do to also other teams from other regions. So you probably have some sort of a comparison, between. Do you see any patterns? I don't know. Are Asian teams and Asian founders, how are they different? How do they see crypto, your platform, differently from European ones, from US? Or would you say it's a global phenomenon anyway, and everybody kind of speaks the same language? Or do you see patterns in that talent layer that are different? Different.
I mean, look, in general, I think there's some stereotypes, right? So you could say Americans are really good at marketing, at selling, at, being charming and persuasive in their pitches, whereas Germans are maybe rather, rational and a bit more composed. And then on the other side, we have great technical talent in Germany that we are known for. But I'd say, the world is becoming more global by the day, and especially with advances like AI. I don't think that these differences are as pronounced anymore, especially in this industry, right? Where, sometimes I communicate with people, I don't even know their gender, right? It's all based on an alias they have online. I don't know which time zone they are, let alone where they are originally from. So I'd say this merges more and more. One thing I wish we had more in Europe was to be a bit more risk embracing. Yeah. So I feel like
Which comes back to regulation again, though, right?
Potentially. I think just in terms of culture and attitude, I think people from other geographies are a bit more of that go-getter. They're more of, having that dog inside them, if you know the famous YC quote. Whereas here, a lot of a lot of the people we interact with are really focused on, having full-time employment. They want pension benefits, they want
Mm-hmm.
retirement benefits, social security, and are less likely to embrace that risk that comes with founding your own company or freelancing or launching an advisory company, etc. And I wish we had a little bit more of this.
I mean, this is interesting, though, because you mentioned regulation and access to capital. But I mean, this is a cultural builder DNA thing then, too, right? That we might be a little less hungry, a little more complacent in Europe. I mean, I think it's probably true that's another factor.
I was in Davos at the World Economic Forum meeting lots of years ago, right? And Angela Merkel was speaking at the time. And I still remember what she said. And she said, in Germany, everything works relatively well. Nothing is a complete disaster. And that is the reason why we also have no drastic change or no hunger for drastic change, because things still work relatively well and people are content enough to put up with the status quo.
Yeah, agree. Let's leave politics and high level stuff. let's go a little bit back into your ecosystem and what's going on there. What are the themes, verticals, opportunity areas that you are excited about these days? So like what are you trying to double down on? Where would you like to see more startups coming into? So trying to, kind of map out, what the builder ecosystem looks like, what people work on. I know that RWAs are a pretty big topic for you guys right now. Obviously, stable coins has been huge, but yeah, just curious, like what are the verticals that you're excited about, that you look into, that you see a lot of traction in?
Yeah. So if you look at Solana's technical architecture, it is fundamentally different from some of the other chains in the sense of, you maybe have heard Solana is very fast and Solana is very cheap, right? And what this means concretely is that Solana can process 65,000 transactions per second. And just in comparison, for example, Ethereum can do 20 or 30. And then when we say Solana is cheap, means that one transaction costs a fraction of a cent, compared to gas fees of certain other chains. And just this technical setup enables fundamentally different use cases than you'd have elsewhere. So just thinking of, high frequency trading, thinking of micropayments, anything where extremely small amounts of money are involved. And this is something that is technically feasible on a chain like Solana and costs next to nothing, versus others where just the technical architecture dictates different types of usage or use cases. So in terms of what I'm excited about for the year, you mentioned the biggest topics already, right? Real world asset, tokenized real world assets. Solana has just crossed a massive number there. So recently, 1.7 billion of real world assets are now tokenized on Solana. And that makes Solana the third largest public blockchain out there when it comes to real world assets, which is a massive accomplishment. The majority there come from financial institutions, right? So this is not driven by retail or by consumers. So it's US treasuries, private credit, financial institutions. On the retail side, prediction markets, and also prediction market infrastructure, prediction market tooling is something that's very exciting, and also something that we see a lot locally. We have amazing startups. The winner of our last Solana hackathon last year, there's a startup called Prediction Index, run by an amazing founder called Lily, and she built a signaling tool for prediction markets. So it's a plugin that you can use on Kalshi or on Polymarket to help traders find high-level signals. And then finally, anything related to stablecoins, to stablecoin infrastructure, stablecoins on retail, but even more so also on the financial infrastructure side, is something where we see a lot of potential and certainly going to be seeing some amazing innovation this year.
Exciting. You you commented on a question that I shared before, which was I think it was like what doesn't get enough attention, like what topic, what theme like is super cool but isn't talked about enough. And you said, oh yeah, I don't know if that question is good. Why is that question maybe not a good one?
Just a feeling that when we speak about retail or about consumer, unfortunately, it feels like marketing and the hype is just really all encompassing. And I have rarely ever seen a product that was absolutely amazing and no one talked about it. Because sadly, most of the time, the opposite is the case, right? Where we have a ton of hype, amazing marketing, and then, the reality is just catching up to this. So this was the comment to that question.
All right. So we need to keep pushing for less hype, less narrative, and more substance and better products, I guess.
Better fundamentals, absolutely. Real product market fit and real revenue are definitely the drivers of this year.
Yeah. And I wanted to, you mentioned one specific founder and one startup already. I wanted to talk about quickly about the founder perspective. So what, like if somebody listens to this and tries to learn about on-chain growth here, and they're, I don't know, young engineers or product people or whatever, like what's the typical journey? What can they expect? Like, how, I'm trying to understand the founder perspective a little bit. How do they interact with you? Are they taken through, let's say, your processes? What does it look like from a founder perspective?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So depending on which stage you're in, right? Whether you just have an idea and you want to work on this further, or whether you are already an experienced founder, you've worked on your business for several years and you have some sort of initial traction. It depends on your stage, what I would recommend. So let's say you are at the early stages, maybe you have an idea, maybe you have an initial team, you've worked on this a bit. I'd say the first place for you to start is to come to one of our hackathons or rather startup competitions. And for this is we usually rent out a big building in Berlin for 2 weeks straight, to which builder can come and from which they can work. We have those fully catered. We have mentors there every single day. We do workshops. And a lot of our founders use this as an environment to perform a sprint, a building sprint. The atmosphere is really great because you have all these other builders there that are all working on the same thing. Everyone helps each other. There's amazing community because, as I mentioned, we do the full catering there, so people really stick around. Most of the times we're open until late at night. And these are really great ways to go from idea or go from something that's very early to an initial POC to something that just is a little bit more advanced. I'd also say submit at our demo day. We do these in real life demo days twice a year where we invite VC investors, angels, people from the ecosystem who are judging, and where we also give out local prizes just for builders in the room. So at the last one, we had Börse Stuttgart Digital as well as Manzuri. Do you know Manzuri?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Not yet, Norman. Maybe in a couple of years, you'll be a client. Manzuri is luxury cars. And not just any luxury cars. So they take Lamborghinis, for example, and then highly customize them. So it's cars that start, I think, at $1 million US dollars, one of one. And they came in to partner with us for the hackathon and also provided prices.
I need to ask about this now. Okay, so I mean, obviously they sponsor stuff and they partner with you, so they have some marketing intention, and either somebody on the other side has just too much budget, or there's like some target group fit that I don't see here. But like, why did they partner with you guys?
But that's so obvious, Norman. My hackathon builders are their customers of tomorrow.
Absolutely. The unicorn founders.
The unicorn founders of tomorrow, absolutely. Besides, Manzuri is quite crypto native almost. So they have launched a token on Solana, irrespective of our collaboration. They've had a Manzuri token for a couple of years now, for their biggest holders, and which also gives you access to exclusive deals, merge, etc.
Are they German?
So
Or where are they from?
yes, I believe one of the founders is German, but
Okay.
would need to research.
Might need to get their marketing person on here. That's quite interesting, actually.
Absolutely. So I think it's also very smart positioning on their side, because they do see where their customers, where their clients come from. And it seems to be a lot of them are from the crypto industry.
That's interesting.
Mm.
Cool. Really exciting. What's the thing that you have before we close? Like I try to get into like what people are curious, maybe outside of their day-to-day stuff. Like what's the thing that you have looked into lately? Any topic that you geeked out on that was a rabbit hole for you, that you discovered that interested you within Solana, within your job or outside? Like what are you is there anything you're geeking out on, or are you just too busy operating?
No, hopefully there are things and interests outside of the daily operations. One thing that comes to mind is longevity and everything related to it, right? You've probably heard of Brian Johnson, and you've probably also heard of the controversies that he has uncovered. So, for example, AG1 was long touted as the best vitamin you could take. He has now said there were independent studies that claimed this was absolutely useless. Brian Johnson also has been at some Solana conferences, by the way, in the US. So I think what I'm really interested in, besides crypto and my day-to-day work, is longevity, anything related to this topic. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like a lot of crypto people also tap into this area a lot.
100%. It is a huge trend, and I was in Switzerland 2 weeks ago, and there was I was at the house of a crypto investor who did an investor meetup, and he is the co-founder of the Crypto Finance Conference in St. Moritz. Maybe you've heard of this. And he has now really also pivoted into longevity, and he raised a longevity fund. So he's now has his own VC fund focused on longevity. He built a longevity house that you can rent with the latest tech in longevity. So yeah, I hate to admit, but I am swimming in a very, very big trend wave with the topic.
That's fine.
And
that's fine. I feel it's a good one. It's a good topic too.
It's interesting for sure, right?
Yeah.
The Don't Die movement and all of those. Let's see how they play out.
Amazing. Yeah, I think we can wrap it up, Patricia. Do you want to share anything people should look up, or how people can find you? How can people connect with you?
Absolutely. So please, if you're interested in getting in touch with Superteam Germany, we have so many events across Germany in all cities. There's social events, there's more technical events, there's educational events, etc. So I'd say go on our website, and there you find the link to our Luma calendar and can check out all of them. And if you're looking at connecting with like-minded individuals, we also have Telegram groups, Solana Germany. I think if you look for those just in Telegram, you can also find them. Or maybe Norman, you can link them in the show notes.
Will do.
And absolutely. And then if anyone wants to reach out to me directly to get support, maybe you can also share my email address, and I'd be very happy to be in touch.
We will do that. We're going to put all of it in the show notes. Thank you so much, Patricia, for coming on. It was fun. I really like how you guys approach ecosystem building. Again, I think it's not, maybe it becomes more of a standard and people figure out that many proven playbooks work and people should have more substance. So I've been a fan of how you do stuff in Germany from day one. So thanks for coming on, and have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much, Norman. To you as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.